The history of Poles in the United States dates all the way back to the American colonial era, and since then historians have identified three distinct waves of immigration from Poland to the United States. The first and largest wave was from 1870 to 1914, when over 2 million Poles fled Germany, Russia, and Austria. The second wave occurred after World War II, and the third and smallest wave occurred in the 1980s, when communist Poland was just about to be liberated. This third wave is commonly referred to as the Solidarity immigration due to the imposition of martial law in Poland in 1981 and the decade-long struggle to bring democracy to the Polish Republic. My parents were a part of this third wave. During this time period, Poles yearned to escape communism and the imposed martial law, which was declared by Poland's last communist leader, General Wojciech Jaruzelski, on December 13, 1981.
Obywatelki i obywatele. Wielki jest ciężar odpowiedzialności, jaka spada na mnie w tym dramatycznym momencie polskiej historii. Obowiązkiem moim jest wziąć tę odpowiedzialność. Chodzi o przyszłość Polski, o którą moje pokolenie walczyło na wszystkich frontach wojny i której oddało najlepsze lata swego życia. Ogłaszam, że w dniu dzisiejszym ukonstytuowała się Wojskowa Rada Ocalenia Narodowego. Rada Państwa w zgodzie z postanowieniami Konstytucji wprowadziła dziś o północy stan wojenny na obszarze całego kraju.
General Jaruzelski was firm in his beliefs and wanted to impose military power over Poland in order to enforce communism. In order to enforce it, the general also planned to eliminate people who got in the way of his vision, which led to the arrest of the pro-democracy leader Lech Wałęsa. Lech Wałęsa fought for freedom since communism oppressed many Poles. For the Poles, communism meant that the government owned basically everything except for the clothes on people's backs. So many Poles were left with no reward for personal incentive. What was the point? There were no social classes and no citizen was supposed to be better off than the next. Everyone was stuck in the same position.
Nobody knows what kind of system was in Eastern Europe at that time. Everybody called it communist, but pretty much was totalitarian government and one-party government, and the whole government and a party they corrupted. So for regular people, which they are not part of the system, it's really hard to make a living.
It's a system that it's run by Communist Party, which is automatically pretty much a government, and if you're not a member of the Communist Party, you cannot get a good job. It just limits you with options and choices. It's pretty much like you're controlled by the system.
My parents knew that the communist lifestyle was not the kind of lifestyle that they wanted to live, so they gathered their things in order to make the move to America, and this is their story. Meet my family. In the United States, there are only 4 of us. This is my sister Natalia, then there's me, and these are my 2 Polish parents, Halina and Jerzy. We are not the Malik family or the Malik family. Together, we are the Malitz family, and we are Polish. To escape communism and the oppression they faced from it, my parents decided to leave Poland in 1986. My daddy came from Zamość, Poland, and went on his way to Madrid, Spain. He left his first wife and son in order to seek a better life. This son is my half-brother Maciej, but we call him Maciek for short.
There was a pretty bad situation in Poland, political situation. First there was a imposed martial law, and nobody knew at that time what's going to happen in the future, and many young people, because they didn't see any future ahead of them, so they decided to go somewhere else and look for better life.
On the other hand, my mom came from Tarnobrzeg, Poland, and also left for Madrid, Spain, in order to acquire immigration papers. My parents met in Madrid, and that's where they fell in love.
Hope for a better life. Things were really challenging in Poland. The life, the Communist Party, the way how the system worked, and pretty much some lack of freedom. And I was young and adventurous, and I wanted to have more options, more possibilities, so I decided to seek the immigration. I enjoyed living in Spain while I was going through the immigration process. The Mediterranean seemed to be very laid back and relaxed, but then transition to the United States in the beginning was hard work.
Once both of my parents passed their interviews and were accepted for immigration, they decided to come to America, more specifically to Boston, Massachusetts, along with many other immigrants, and there they began to date.
Well, mainly because I've been to US before several times, and I already knew language, and I thought that was a country with more opportunities than the other countries, so I decided to go there. It was probably at that time was regular process, like everybody who was asking for political asylum had to go through, which involved interview and writing down reasons, and then submitting all that paperwork to the embassy, and waiting for an interview and on a decision. Well, first was Massachusetts, Boston was on a, because East Coast was closer to Europe. My family was still in Poland, so it was kind of closer, and that's why I decided to go over there.
Wasn't too complicated. People were really helpful. I feel I got pretty fortunate that I passed all the interviews and I was accepted to come to the United States.
As a couple, my parents really struggled, living out of just one small suitcase. They found themselves in difficult financial situations and encountered a large language barrier, but they were constantly helped by generous, friendly American people.
Working with adoption and with gaining the knowledge how the system works, and how everything works, because the system we lived before was totally different, and even if the life wasn't so much different like everyday's life, but all the institutions, and you had to just learn too many new things.
For me would be in the beginning the language. I thought that I spoke little English, but when I ended up in the United States, it turned out that the little English that I spoke was pretty much not much. So I had to go back to school and study.
Treated well, but the beginning was really hard, was still kind of had to learn language and looking for a job. It was kind of at the beginning hard to adopt because you had to find the job and a housing. So it was pretty rough at the beginning.
How were you treated in the US?
Very nicely. I find that people can be really patient and helpful and caring and in some cases generous.
My parents also struggled to stay in touch with their families and were sad to leave them, but their families supported them and were proud of them for seeking new opportunities in America.
It was pretty tough for everybody because at the beginning the phone calls, they're very expensive. There was no internet at that time. There was no video chat or anything like that. So it was pretty hard. You had to count the money for how long you got to talk. And later on, when the situation improved over there, I mean political situation, they're easing up and the phones calls, they're getting cheaper, so it was much easier. And later on, the parents, they're able to visit the States, and I was able to go over there because everything has changed there.
Later in life, my parents made the move to the Seattle area in Washington, where my sister and I were born, and my parents, along with my sister and I, slowly adjusted to an American way of life while keeping in touch with our Polish traditions and culture. Although the largest Polish community in the United States is in Chicago, Illinois, my family is a part of the Polish community in Seattle, which is made up of around 5,000 members. We participate actively in the St. Margaret of Scotland Polish Church and in the Polish Scouting Organization in Seattle. We also attend events in the Dom Polski, or Polish Home. The Polish-American children in this community have become family to me, and they allow me to live a double life: my American life at school and my true Polish life everywhere else. It's quite amazing how connected we are to our Polish roots, and we plan to have the Polish community in Seattle thrive for a very long time.
Złe kilometry dzielą nas. Lato umiera, jesieni czas. Blaszany daszek tłucze deszcz, a w mojej głowie wciąż ktoś jest. Więc gdy wspomnienia męczą cię, wracają myśli, krótkie dnie. Zobaczyć jeszcze raz jej piękne czarne oczy, śnią się czarne.